afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the March 5th, 2020 Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting. Jill, take a roll call.
Kays.
Here.
Culhane.
Here.
Stein. Dolly.
Here.
Dargis Johnson. Here. Brink.
Here.
Waletsky. Present. Ford and Hanson are absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the February 4th, 2020 minutes. Need a motion?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Those will be deferred till the next meeting. They did not get
Thank you,
finished.
Jill. Moving on to item 4, application conditional use permit number 20032.
The owner applicant of this application for conditional use permit is Brian and Sheila Nygaard, doing business as Nygaard Concrete Construction and Snow Removal. The property address is yet to be determined. It will happen with the building, but it's approximately 2511 and 2515 14th Avenue Southeast. This is a conditional use request. The applicant seeks approval for a caretaker's residence in a contractor's shop and storage yard facility to be constructed in the I-1 Light Industrial District. A caretaker's residence is a listed conditional use for the I-1 Light Industrial District per 21-32037. The definition of it is caretaker's residence, a single-family dwelling unit, which will be considered an accessory use to the primary business. The individual residing at this residence must own or be employed by the business. No home occupations will be allowed. The primary use of this property will be a contractor's shop / yard per 21-320-213, specifically a concrete construction and snow removal business as allowed by definition. The definition is a contractor's shop or storage yard is the use of land or buildings for storage and preparation of materials used by that same individual in conducting business, including but not limited to construction repair work, fabrication and assembly, and incidental retail sales. Each unit shall have separate water and sewer utilities. Applicant submitted written request, a conceptual plan and floor plan of the residence, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. 210202 2B7A through H is a chapter or a section, on specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This includes, and the board is tasked with a review of ingress, egress, off-street parking and loading, refuse, utilities, service areas, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility. The board also has a review of 2163 off-street parking and loading requirements and Chapter 2165 outside storage and display requirements for specific uses, Chapter 2173 landscape and lighting standards, and Title 24 subdivision of land when applicable. Note that this parcel is a platted lot. This board must consider if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 210202 2B7A through H and the chapters I just described. If endorsed, conditions of approval must be specified, as a building permit may be issued upon compliant application without return to this board.
Thank you, Jill. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If anybody's here to speak on behalf or against, approach the microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is John Knight. I'm an attorney. I practice here in Watertown, and I represent Brian and Sheila Nygaard.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Looking at the site plan, I think some of the items here are addressed on the site plan itself. I think some of the items still have some open questions regarding some of the off-street parking, refuse and service areas. Have you looked through the conditions of the conditional use, and do we have a a summary of what's going to be done to address each of those?
So I have looked through the conditions, and I'm pretty familiar with them just in another capacity. But in any event, it's my understanding that there are going to be two approaches or driveways, so that Brian will be able to drive in on one driveway and out the other. It looks like there's plenty of room for him to be able to operate his equipment within the yard. He has a concrete business, so it's primarily light equipment, Bobcat, some trailers, some concrete forms, those kinds of things that would be stored in the building. The residence structure is going to be a two-bedroom. You know, Brian and Sheila don't have kids. They're past that point in their life, and so it's going to be a two-bedroom residential living area. There's adequate room on the outside to meet your requirements for storage, parking. I guess I didn't specifically cover the idea of the dumpster, but certainly there's adequate area there for that. They'll be able to put that behind the building or on the side of the building. The dump truck or the equipment that's used to get the dumpster will be able to pick that up either in the back of the building or on the side of the building. I don't think that there's any
How
issues.
How much of the lot is going to be concrete surfaced? Concrete surfacing is called out on the site plan, but it doesn't look like it specifies exactly where.
Is it the entire lot? I think his intention is to have the
The
entire
entire
lot.
lot.
Other than that, there's some grass and trees in the front
In the
area.
boulevard area.
In the boulevard, but the rest of the lot will be concrete.
First, a question for Jill. Can you pull up the digital picture of the site? Is there a sidewalk either to the east or the west on the adjoining properties, Jill?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Knight, the applicant is aware that sidewalks are required. Would you feel that your applicant would have any objections to signing a waiver of right of refusal if and when sidewalks were to be required to be placed on that property?
So the waiver would consist of what?
I can defer to staff.
It would basically be that it's required to be done whenever the building is done, but the waiver lets you not put it in until such time as the rest of the area is done at the
Sure.
same time.
So he
It's
won't
just-
have any problem with that.
So,
Looking at the adjacent land there, this lot is completely surrounded by other I-1 lots. Jill, just to get a better area of where this development is, zoom out. So that's the Walmart lot there to the northeast of this lot. So this area of I-1 development back there does consist primarily of other contractor shop situations.
That's correct.
For staff, do we have any other caretaker residences in the city of Watertown?
yeah, I believe there's 3 or 4 out there existing. Originally, they started off as a permitted use, and just basically a couple of months ago, we
Switched.
converted over to the conditional use. Excuse me.
Has there been any issues with anything related to those caretaker residences in the I-1? Any problems with those that we need to be aware of if we were to want to make sure that doesn't reoccur in this situation?
There hasn't been any issues that came back to us so far yet. Some of the ones previously do, and I think one of the main reasons we wanted to make this a conditional use is so it'd be better to identify those buildings that does have a residential part to it, so it would be notified and everybody be aware of it. In the past, that's one of the things, like, and for fire departments deal, is they want to be able to pull up to the building and know if there's somebody there or not, so.
For Chip, any issues from a fire standpoint with with the living structure associated with that? Is there special walls that have to be built or anything like that?
As long as it falls into the code compliance of the rules of the code, it's fine.
Yeah, and I was kind of going to go on to what Ken said. Just a few months ago, caretaker residence was a permitted use and would have had to come to us. But at that time, we wanted to come to us just so that we knew where they were, not necessarily, that we didn't want them in this zone, but we wanted to know where people were living, especially for, fire and emergency personnel.
Yeah, and if I can address that just briefly, that was one of the things that Brian brought up to me when he came to see me, is that he bought this lot with the understanding that it was a permitted use, and, but for the fact that in this case, government moved too quickly, he didn't realize that it had already been passed by the time he submitted his application. But when it comes to compatibility, obviously a residential structure is going to have almost no impact on the industrial area as compared to an industrial use in a residential area. So, certainly I think you could consider that compatible just because it really is going to have no impact on the surrounding area. And then my other thought that, because some of you don't know Brian, I wanted to make sure you understand or at least have some working information about this. I've known Brian for 45 years. I know the kind of property that he's owned in the past and the way that he does business. And you're not going to have a bunch of junk. It's going to be, one of the more neat and orderly properties that you have out there. I realize that you can't really make a finding on that, but I'm just telling you from my personal experience and how long I've known Brian and his family that just isn't going to be an issue for this kind of property.
I can say something about that too, because Sheila used to do daycare for me, and at 2 different properties that they owned, and they are fantastic. It is well maintained and well planned out.
Yeah, and I think from a general compatibility standpoint, I mean, obviously this is completely surrounded by other I-1 properties being similarly used. The question is simply, the conditional use that we're looking at here. Any other questions for Mr. Knight? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anybody else to speak in the public on this one? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit for the caretaker residence in a contractor shop yard with the caveat that the applicant sign a waiver of right to protest the installation of sidewalk if and when requested by the city.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Case.
Second.
Second by Mr. Culhane. Any additional discussion on this topic from the board? Seeing none, we'll take a vote.
Aye.
Culhane,
Yes.
Waletsky,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Stein,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson. Yes. Dolly,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Jill. Item 5 on the agenda is open public comments. If anybody here is to speak to the board on something that wasn't on the agenda for the Board of Adjustments, now would be the time. If not, we will take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Stein. Second by Culhane. All in favor? Anybody opposed?